Hi, AP US History students. It's Miss Simmons, and I wanted to share with you a review about foreign policy concerning Unit 6. So, this is based off of this timeline, which you should be able to find on Google Classroom. The theme, again, is foreign policy. It's for Unit 6. Unit 6 starts at roughly the end of the Civil War, end of Reconstruction, kind of blending together there. So 1860s, 1870s, all the way up to about 1900. And I'm going to be doing that via this um, Google slide. So I'll take you through that. So Unit 6 Foreign Policy Review, the major topics I want to talk about are new immigration and imperialism. So let's get started. One of the things that is evident concerning our foreign policy during this time period is that our restrictions on immigration are largely non existent. We do have one major example of restriction on immigration, and that's the Chinese Exclusion Act in the 1880s. But our foreign policy with other countries is that we will willingly accept from Europe people who want to leave for whatever reason. And the vast majority of those people who want to come to the United States are coming because they do not have great economic prospects in their home countries, or perhaps there's political upheaval in their home country, or perhaps there's a lack of religious freedom in their home country. And we open our doors to a lot of people coming in the time period of new immigration, which is from the 1880s to the 1920s. What we're seeing that's new about this immigration is a real shift of where immigrants are coming from and also in the numbers of people coming. We're seeing millions of people coming in this time period, which is a huge growth from the previous time period for immigration. What we used to see prior to this time period is the vast majority of immigrants coming into the United States, not forced, like people from Africa forced into slavery, but the people willingly coming are coming from Northern and Western Europe. And now they're mainly coming from South, Central, and Eastern Europe. Let's talk about imperialism, which is a more of a direct example of our foreign policy around the world. We are, prior to the Civil War, not terribly active in engaging with places outside of the United States. This is going to change in Unit 6. And in order for us to understand that change, we need to know the rationale behind this growth of imperialism. There's a couple of different reasons, one of which is economic. You can see in this advertisement right here for Singer Sewing Company that the United States is trying to sell sewing machines not only to people within the United States, but all of the Americas, and in fact, beyond the Americas to the rest of the world. That's an example of our economic determination to try to open up more markets as we are industrializing also in this time period. You can also see, based on this chart, the number of exports is now outnumbering the number of imports, and both numbers are going up in this time period from 1870 to 1914. This ends, by the way, in 1914 because that's when World War I starts. We also see in this chart right here investments in other countries, and the number of money, the amount of money that we're investing in other countries is growing exponentially in this time period from the post-Civil War time period to the beginning of the 20th century. And that is because we want to build up people's infrastructure so that we can get our goods to those countries. Another reason why we're imperializing in this time period is because of the belief that we want to build up our navy. We want to build up our military the way that other European countries are also building up their military. And here's a photograph of the Pacific Fleet from the 19th century. This is largely the idea of Alfred Mahan, who is a officer in the Navy, and he wrote about the United States wanting the United States to become a major Pacific power and also a naval power in the Caribbean. Another reason for our imperializing is because of our belief that we are, in fact, superior to all other countries. And in this cartoon, which I know is partially blocked by this rectangular box here, but I'll try to explain what's going on here. Here's Uncle Sam scratching his head as Lady Liberty is welcoming in a whole basket of different children into the United States. We're offering them asylum. Notice these countries are depicted as children. Hawaii is here. This is the Philippines. This is Cuba. This is Puerto Rico. And written on the arms of the person holding this basket of children is manifest destiny. So tying into this notion of us getting involved in other countries is also the notion of our spreading manifest destiny. Within our gates, we have Native Americans, we have white people all dancing around happily because of this belief that we have some superior way of life. And as soon as these children are welcomed in, they're going to become happy children within the United States. This is definitely a social Darwinist belief about ourselves and about our country that is behind the efforts of imperialism. The last two major reasons are the fact that we have a lot of Christians who are trying to spread Christianity to different places, and they want these places to be made safe in some way for them to be able to go and spread Christianity. We're mainly doing this in this time period in Africa and in Asia. And last, remember Frederick Jackson Turner and his thesis. So Frederick Jackson Turner's thesis really is about how the frontier is closing up within the United States and that he believes democracy will die as the frontier closes up. So we're now looking for new frontiers, places outside of the United States. Let's talk about some examples of imperialism. Very early imperialism, we have Matthew Perry going with the Navy to Japan and trying to force Japan to open its doors to us to trade. We also see that we purchase Alaska in 1867 and annex it. And in 1898, we annex Hawaii after deposing their queen, Lulukilani. Both of these political cartoons deal with Hawaii, and they show the United States kind of going back and forth about wanting to be able to purchase sugar that we cannot easily grow in the United States. And so we're kind of seesawing back and forth between relying on countries in Central America that provide us with sugar and going to Hawaii looking for that sugar. In this cartoon, it's from a political satire magazine, Puck. It says, "Another shotgun wedding with neither party willing." That's what it says down here. And you can see that Uncle Sam is getting married to Hawaii. Neither one of them are willing. William McKinley is the pastor, and he is reading a book about manifest destiny as opposed to the Bible, marrying them together. This man here is supposed to represent someone who was actually a Confederate general in the Civil War, who's a senator from Alabama, and he's on the Foreign Policy Oversight Committee in the Senate. He's trying to force this taking on specifically of Hawaii. If you remember also about Hawaii, Sanford Dole is also behind this. He's that person who's going to be wanting to spread his plantations of sugar and of the pineapples in Hawaii. Probably the best example of imperialism from this time period is the Spanish-American War. It's going to last for 3 months in the summer of 1898. Teddy Roosevelt calls it the Splendid Little War. The rationale for the war is because we want to be able to free Cuba from Spanish control and spread democracy there. The outcome of this war is definitely that we gain a lot imperialistically. We get indirect control over Cuba. We get direct control over Puerto Rico. We take over the Philippines. We end up in a 3-year-long war in the Philippines as they try to maintain their own control. All of this imperialism is going to lead to different types of diplomacy, which frankly really fit into Unit 7, but it's stemming out of this imperialism from Unit 6. The 3 major types of diplomacy are big stick diplomacy of Teddy Roosevelt. The best example of that would be the Roosevelt Corollary, where he says that we will militarily get involved if countries in Central America aren't doing what we want them to do. Another example of that might be building the Panama Canal, which I think also gets into dollar diplomacy. Dollar diplomacy is largely practiced by Taft, also by Teddy with the Panama Canal. And the idea is that we're going to spend a lot of money on infrastructure in Central American countries to help our trade and our economy. Moral diplomacy is largely practiced by Woodrow Wilson. The best example of this would be in World War I, when he argues that the reason why we want to get involved in this European war is to make the world safe for democracy. That's where I'm ending. Talk to you guys later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.